It's time for round three, and will it be more Amazing Spider-Man? Probably. Hey there, welcome to part three of this, what's turning out to be an epic unboxing of comic books that I won from HipComic from the seller Quality Comics. I am still going through this stack, or maybe at this point, you're thinking it's a pile of comics. I'm seeing a lot of value, but some consistency already if you've watched the first two parts of this series, where the conditions are averaging out somewhere around the 9.0, maybe 9.2, but somewhere in there. But the good news is I have been consistent with identifying one book that I've been able to improve with a clean and press. And I'll share some before and after photos here of the progress that I made with Amazing Spider-Man 228. Now, this book, it was probably my least favorite cover out of the 6 books that I shared. But as far as pressable defects go and other opportunities to improve the book, I felt like it had the best potential. And I graded the book a 9.2, but needed a general cleaning. And I didn't really think it needed a dry cleaning or erasing, so I ended up wet cleaning the book. But I also added humidity this time. And what I was planning on doing is doing one pass of wet cleaning and then pressing the book, letting it sit for 24 hours in the cold press, and then applying humidity to the book, and then pressing it a second time, and then letting it sit in the cold press. But I experimented, and I ended up doing both in one shot. So I gave it a wet clean with distilled water on both the front and the back cover, and then after the book dried, I applied humidity to the spine. And one other thing I did a little bit differently is I put a chamfered board in there. Now, I have been struggling with the tack iron work along the spine with chamfered boards, where I've actually created markings where it's the iron's either been too hot, or I've pressed too hard, where the chamfered board ends up starting to crease down on the spine. And what I did is I put the board inside the book with nothing else, and then applied steam to the spine, hoping that the curvature of the chamfered board would kind of pop the non-color breaking ticks out as the steam was applied. So a little bit of a different technique, just to, again, remove some of the pressure of any sort of indentation along the spine. Put the book through the press, and I think it turned out really nice. I ended up regrading the book as a 9.6. Couldn't quite justify a 9.8. There's just some minor little imperfections along the edges that I just didn't want to spend any more time with. I really feel like it's probably borderline 9.8. It's one of those situations like, are you going to catch a CGC grader on a good day or not? But I think it's a solid 9.6, and I'm really happy to take a 9.2 to a 9.6. And that's, again, what I'm doing. I'm kind of getting my reps with these books. I'm understanding what my process is, but I'm also taking a lot of emotion out of it. I'm trying not to will a book into a 9.8 or just hope a book gets a 9.8. It is what it is. I've done the work. I've research the values, put it through the process, and whatever grade it comes out as, that's what it's going to be. I'm not going to overwork the book or try to get it to a point where I'm overgrading it. After I'm done pressing, I treat it like a brand new book I've never seen before, and I assess it and grade it. So going from a 9.2 to 9.6, I love that, and I hope to attempt this process on some of my bigger books as I continue to gain confidence. Now, this is going to be part 3 of the same unboxing and the same process of grabbing 5 to 6 books. Again, spoiler alert, they're probably going to be Amazing Spider-Man if they were packed kind of in alphabetical order. I won quite a few ASMs from this auction. So let's take a look at the next stack of books. All right, we're back with the stack. I have not looked at these. I don't know what the next set of books are, so I'm going to go ahead and just pick them out here. All right, here we go. I'll set the rest aside. And it looks like I'm about halfway through the order, so I've got a ways to go. But to me, this is it's more interesting, a lot more fun to go through smaller stacks and look at the values together with you and take a look at the actual grades that I'm assigning to the book. All right, and the first book is Amazing Spider-Man 303. So it looks like I'm going to get into some McFarlane Spideys, and these, again, are just so collectible and so overproduced that these are not rare by any stretch. And McFarlane has such a following that these are always collectible. The one thing I will notice is right there at the top. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's a printing defect. I really don't know how CGC grades a book like this. To me, it's not presentable at all. So even if it was considered to be some sort of manufacturing error of some kind, I would really need it, not pre-screen like a 9.8 pre-screen, but I would need a professional grader to really kind of tell me what that means. So if you know, please drop a comment. But I can't really tell. And even if they did count that as a manufacturing defect, it's just not a presentable book. If I ignore that, though, we've got the standard stack increase that keeps happening with books in this order. A couple of hairline spine ticks, but really not bad. Again, in that 9.2, 9.4 type range, I think maybe even I'd bump it down maybe to a 9.2 because of the stack increase. And obviously, I have to check out the back as well. But there's ASM 303, and I have a feeling this is going to be a little run of McFarlane ASMs, and I am correct. This is Amazing Spider-Man 304. McFarlane, when he started drawing Spider-Man, he was just trying to go for every crazy pose or angle that he could think of that he hadn't seen before, and this is certainly one of those where it's really just nuts. Even turning it upside down, it's cool. Let's take a look at the condition on this one. Not too bad. I think that the biggest defect here is this little tearing near the staple. And I tried not to bid on these, and I either didn't notice it at the time or just felt like these were still good pickups, even if they were in the high 8s, low 9s. But yeah, as I go through this, I'm looking at the first two, and I don't see them as the book I will select a candidate for pressing, but it has a little bit of wrinkling in here too, so you can see there. So, always great books. I have a full run of the Amazing Spider-Man issues done by McFarlane. I think it was 298, 325, or 328. The only one I'm missing is 316. That's the famous cover with Venom standing over Spider-Man. So I am on the lookout for that one. Here's another one. This is Amazing Spider-Man 307. This one I bid on because this is a tough book with the all black background, and I didn't see any color breaking ticks on the scan. I am seeing one here, very, very small right in there, and then also a very, very small one right over Chameleon's shoulder. Not my favorite McFarlane Spider-Man cover ever, but in the Spider-Man universe, this is considered a very, very minor key related to Chameleon. But I thought this was a relatively clean copy for a book that went up for auction, and wanted to go ahead and grab it just in case, as even 9.6s should have pretty good value for ASM 307. Next is, we're going to jump backwards. This is Amazing Spider-Man 203, where we've got Dazzler guest starring in this book. Great 40-cent cover, Amazing Spider-Man from 1980. And this looks to be in really good shape. Spine looks strong, definitely miswrapped. Not my favorite to get miswrapped books, but sometimes that does protect the spine. It looks like to me there's just a little bit of crunching right up there at the top. You can see it. That's where those issues right at the top and in the corner are definitely pressable. So this is probably one of those opportunities for a clean and press. Also a little rough around the staple there, but looks pretty good otherwise. So this might be that candidate that I put through the clean and press process. Yeah, it looks pretty good. So pretty happy with this one. This was the oldest Amazing Spider-Man book, the lowest issue number I got. I think I got it for a reasonable price, around $4 or $5. Next is Amazing Spider-Man 204. And these early Amazing Spider-Mans with Black Cat are very highly collectible, with her first appearance being in Amazing Spider-Man 194. Only 10 issues later, there she is on the cover of 204 as well. And taking a look at the spine, I'm seeing some tiny color breaking ticks, the stack increase. Again, this is pretty much consistent, I think, when you kind of get like a general auction winning from Quality Comics. You could potentially get a little stacking crease, a couple of spine ticks. That, again, yes, the Amazing Spider-Man title is getting to be redundant in these unboxings, but I think what's interesting that we see is we start to see the same types of defects, which again should influence your decision on whether or not you would want to participate in an auction like this. If you're like, hey, I'll take a couple of hairline spine ticks, there's definitely a dent or crease right in there that would have to be dealt with. I can work on that book. I can turn it into a 9.4, 9.6. Then it might be worth your while to participate. So again, looking at trends and things to expect so that you don't have to spend a lot of time going through scans of each and every book. You can kind of start to see these patterns when you're looking at scans or you're looking at auctions and the type of books that are in there and say, okay, these are going to end up being in the 8592 until I get them in my hands and figure out, is it something I want to clean and press? So that ASM 204, I think that was the second most expensive book that I picked up in this auction. It was important to me, again, to get some of these early Black Cat books. And I will say one thing, too, when you're looking at scans of books for auction and everything, the one thing I've noticed, too, is a lot of the books will have foxing already on it. And these are not like Golden Age or Silver Age. These are bronze and even early copper. And those I stay away from completely. And you can see in the scan, you'll just start to see those sort of rust stains or the yellow dots and orange dots showing up on the book. It was something that I had to learn the hard way with some of my earlier orders, is to just stay away from those. If there's a little dirt, that's fine. CGC allows for some dirt, and some of that dirt can be lifted off the book with either dry or wet cleaning, but I try and stay away from foxing altogether. Next is Amazing Spider-Man 272, jumping up to the Copper Age. You got to make way for Slide. And this book looks to be pretty good. A little bit of an ink stain there. Again, none of these books are going to be perfect, but how close to perfect are they? This one looks really, really good. Minor stacking crease, so this may only require just a press, but I'll have to check out the back of the book to see if it also needs to go through any sort of wet cleaning or humidity treatment. But again, winning a book like this for $1 or $2, it's just hard to pass up. And then the last book in this stack, yes, Amazing Spider-Man 273, featuring the Beyonder, Secret Wars 2 tie-in. We've got the Puma, Black Suit Spidey. Like, these are the comics that I remember as a kid, wondering who the heck the Beyonder was, just some dude in a big white jacket. And taking a look at the condition, this one definitely has some spine issues here. Not too bad, looks relatively clean, but I can see even through the bag just tiny indentations right in here. Really hard to pick up. They're so small. There's another one. So again, still probably in that 9.4-ish, 9.2 sort of range, but this stack seemed to be in a little bit better shape than the others. I think it started off a little rough with the McFarlane Spider-Man books, but especially ASM 203 right here, I think this one has some good potential there to possibly be lifted up a grade or two. So this is, again, part 3 of an ongoing series. I haven't done the math to see how many parts this will be, but I wanted to pick 7 books this time to go through as I continue to navigate the stack of Amazing Spider-Man books. And I mentioned the consistency with the condition, but I think as I'm sharing the values with you too, you're starting to see some trends in consistency as well. Not so much with purchase price, because I think that varies. It depends on if other bidders want to bid against you. Your final winning bid, it kind of depends. Some of these books that I was getting for $1 or $2, I'm sure I put a $5 or $6 max bid, and I just wasn't competing with anybody else. But when you're looking at the values, take a look at the CGC 9.8 value, the 9.6, the 9.4, and look at kind of the ranges and compare it to maybe the raw book fair market value. And it's really kind of targeting these books with $100 plus potential on a 9.8, where the 9.4 or even the CGC 9.2 values are high enough where it could be sort of a money back situation. So if I'm just flat out wrong with the grade, I decide to send it in for grading and it comes back a 9.2 or 9.4. Is it something where I could move the book, get my money back, and try again? And that's really what I look for. I try not to take books where, oh, it ended up being a 7.0, it's a complete loss, the book's doesn't have any value graded, and so forth. I'm really trying to make sure that there's always some potential in these books while keeping the risk as low as possible. Thanks for watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time.